All right, everybody. What's going on, JP Football Fanatics fans? It is your boy James here, back with you once again with another video here, which we are now officially live here for JP Football Fanatics for this broadcast, bringing to you my Week 4 recap for the 2023 NFL season. A lot of games to talk about, a lot of things to talk about in this week, a lot of things to uncover, some things to really dive more into about different teams and what they're looking like so far as we go through 4 weeks of the NFL season. Approaching week 5, what to expect in week 5, things of that nature. It's all recap. It's all time to really dive in and really do a quick synopsis of an overall overview of what week 4 was like. So, if that all sounds good, before I get started with that, please be sure to drop a like on this video right here if you have not done so already. Also, be sure to also hit that subscribe button as well, and hit the notification bell for any time that you guys see me go on more picks and go on for more live streams and different podcasts that I do pre-recorded and so on and so forth. So that way you're helping the channel grow. Each and every month, I seem to always grab at least one new subscriber, which is a plus, obviously. But I want to try to grow this channel to be bigger and better than what it is already. And it's always helpful with all of you guys being there for me at all costs. So be sure to do all those things. Drop a like on this video, leave a comment below, and be sure to also hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell for more NFL content covered by me. So, of course, like always, just want to say thank you so much for everybody that's tuning in. Always means a lot anytime that you guys tune in, anytime that you guys are giving me the help that I personally need on this and on this stream and everything is always a plus for me. So thank you so much for tuning in. So with all that being said, everybody, we're going to dive into week 4. A lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to uncover, and a lot of big question marks about some teams as we approach, to that almost that quarter. I guess it's already a quarter of the season that's already down, and about 3 more quarters left to go. So let us get started with how week 4 went, and I'll pull up the PowerPoint here so that way you guys can see everything that I'm about to talk about, and we will do that. Okay. So first games first. First game I want to talk about obviously is Thursday Night Football. This was one of the games. This was probably one of the top games of the week that we were trying to, for NFL fans and football fans that were kind of looking forward to as being like a really good matchup, one of the best matchups of the week, which is very rare because you don't see that on Thursday Night Football usually. The Lions and the Packers. So the Lions king, so like they're the king of the AFC North, has made its mark in Lambeau Field. So this game could have probably been more of a blowout if the Lions defense didn't have that little comeback for the Packers. So the Lions absolutely dominated in this game in all 3 phases: offense, defense, special teams. They did such a phenomenal job getting this game upright and being able to really get things going on this game. It was phenomenal to see how well methodical this game was planned, and Ben Johnson's offense, really came together. Jared Goff playing like an absolute stud out there, throwing some dots, and David Montgomery, who I believe was the player of this game, to be honest with you. I thought David Montgomery had his best game so far this season, and probably the best game that he's had in his career, with 32 carries, 121 yards, 3 touchdowns. It doesn't get any better than that. Who would have ever thought that David Montgomery, this is something that the Bears were actually looking to seeing in David Montgomery, was being able to be that guy to carry the ground game, which was not really something that he was able to do there due to the Bears being a dysfunctional organization. But he was able to prevail and do really well against the Packers. And in terms of the Packers' run defense usually does struggle, and they did absolutely struggle in this game in all 3 phases. I mean, they were still missing some key players in this game. I know they had Christian Watson come back. Aaron Jones came back too, but he was really non-existent. Christian Watson had 1 big catch for a touchdown that kind of was building that comeback for them, but just wasn't really enough for them. But the Lions had a really nice game plan. They played really well in all 3 phases. And the Packers, as you can tell, the Packers were struggling offensively. Jordan Love probably had his worst game of the season for sure. Probably the worst that he will have. I don't think you're going to see too many games that are bad by Jordan Love this year. But that one was being one of them. They couldn't pass the ball well. They couldn't run the ball with Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon was non-existent in this game. Offensive line was struggling too. They were struggling to protect Love, and they couldn't get the passing game going with Romeo Doubs being their top target for most of the game. So they lost their tight end, Luke Musgrave. They lost him in the game. So who knows if when he'll be back, but he's questionable to return for next week. Aaron Jones, still struggling with that hamstring injury, but he was able to play in this game. So the Packers, there wasn't very many things that they could do right. Jordan Love threw 2 picks, threw a touchdown pass to Christian Watson, who really wasn't involved that much into this offense because Christian Watson's still struggling with that injury that he's dealing with. I believe it's his hamstring. And same with Aaron Jones. So 2 of those players kind of came back too soon. This was probably not the game for them to come back with a Lions team that's showing what they have this year and the juice that they have this year. So this was a really tough day for the Packers. And Jared Goff had a really nice game here too. Despite throwing that first interception on that first drive of the game, I thought he played a really nice game here too. When you watch him throw all those different dots to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who really is his top target. Obviously, you have him. You have the run game going with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs really didn't get a lot of the carries in this game, which was kind of expected that he probably wouldn't have so much as a rookie running back. But I think it does show you that as a first-round running back, he's going to take some time. He's going to take some lumps to really get involved and get used to the offense. So, it's obvious that Montgomery is their guy, and he does a really efficient job when he does run the ball. So I think that's more or less the biggest factor of this whole game is that David Montgomery is there for this team and helps get the ground game going, which was something that he really wasn't able to do in Chicago. So I feel David Montgomery is doing pretty well this year for the Lions. So I'm happy that he was able to go to a team that could use him more effectively and a team that could really improve on the ground game. And he's a guy that doesn't really get hurt all that often, despite him being out for 1 week last week. That was very tough to see. But again, it was a great game for him. Had a nice game. Jared Goff had a nice game. The defense also played extremely well too. But again, with a lot of things that do concern me about this Lions defense is always one thing and one thing only, is that, and it's to let those comebacks happen, and they happen far too often, and that's something that they can't afford to do. They can't afford to let these big comebacks happen in these kind of moments, especially to a divisional rival in Green Bay. So for them to score 34, for the Packers to come up with only 20 points, and the Lions being able to seal the deal with a touchdown run by David Montgomery at the end of the game, that's really big to do. But the Packers, I'm not overly concerned about the Packers. I think their season is going to be just fine. I think they're going to come back from, this loss here. They're going to bounce back. I think they have a couple of really nice games coming up. The Raiders, they play next week. The Broncos, they play the week after, and then the Vikings, they play at the end of the month. So, a lot of games, winnable games, that I think they're going to prevail and overcome with all those different injuries, and I think they're gonna be in pretty good shape. I don't think they're gonna win the division necessarily. I think this division, I think Detroit has really proven that they are the best team in this division. I think they'll still compete. I think they'll still be a kind of a red hot team that will get hot at the right time once things start to settle down, and once some of the bigger guys start getting, the bigger names start getting involved on this team, and which I believe that will definitely happen sooner rather than later. So that's how I feel about this game. This was a good game for Detroit. Bad game for the Packers, but this is a game that they'll learn from. Especially getting killed like this in Lambeau Field is not something that you see. It's a rare sight. But again, teams go through all sorts of different things all the time. So I'm not overly concerned about the Packers. I think they'll be just fine. I think Jordan Love is playing really good football right now. Just this game from last week just was not his game. And I think that's fair enough to say. And I think when you take a look at the rest of their schedule, not overly challenging. Maybe a couple tough games here and there. You have to play the division twice. That's not going to be easy there. You'll have a couple tough games, but at the end of the day, when you think about it, I think they can finish above 500 from what it looks like, and they can probably sneak their way into like that wild card spot. So again, I'm not overly concerned. I think they're going to be just fine, and I think the Lions, I think, are going to be a dark horse this year, and I feel like they can definitely compete with the big dogs as long as their defense stays healthy. That will be their biggest key of making sure their defense stays healthy, and that way they play really well. So that will be a big factor into that particular for that particular team. So that is my overall review for the Lions and the Packers. So let's go on to the next game. This was the London game that happened this past Sunday, and that was with the Atlanta Falcons and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Jaguars came out on top on this one. It was not a very good offensive performance by the Jaguars. Their offense continues to struggle, but they showed that they were able to win. They were overall, obviously, I felt like they were the better team overall. I don't think the Falcons are as good as people want to make it sound like. I think their defense is fine. Their ground game is fine, but the biggest problem of the Falcons is Desmond Ridder. I've been saying it all off season. He was the biggest question mark coming out of the draft last year. He was a big question mark when he took over for Marcus Mariota, and he continues to be a big question as he takes over the helm in Atlanta. So Atlanta is 2-2 now because of that loss to Jacksonville, and I felt like Desmond Ridder, with how he plays football, is exactly the way that he played last year. His pocket presence isn't there. His pocket presence isn't good at all. His mechanics are weak. His accuracy is not there. He doesn't do well under pressure. He's only good when he's running like RPO plays and play action passes. That's really the most that you're going to get out of Desmond Ridder, and that's pretty much it. But he's not a clean pocket passer of a quarterback. And with this team, with having some very underrated talent, I mean, you need to find a quarterback that's going to be able to prevail and be able to help carry an offense. And if you don't have that quarterback, your chances are of winning a lot of games is definitely very slim. So Desmond Ridder is proving that he's just not that guy. He's probably a serviceable backup, but as far as an NFL starter goes, I just don't see it. I really don't. I think this game against Jacksonville with a defense that's, talented on paper, but highly inconsistent, it just showed you that he just isn't the guy for this team. And I think they really should have really thought about looking for a free agent quarterback, during the free agency, or maybe find a different quarterback into the draft or something like that. But that was something that they just weren't interested in. They wanted to roll with Desmond, and now they're proving that he's probably not their answer. So I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know when Taylor Heinicke is going to come in. I feel like Taylor Heinicke should come in sooner rather than later. I don't know how much better Taylor Heinicke will carry the offense more than Desmond Ridder, but I think he's going to put a spark to the offense, and they'll look more competent when it comes to the passing game. But other than that, really, I mean, if you don't find yourself a reliable quarterback or a quarterback that's going to carry your offense, your chances of making the playoffs is just not there. So Jacksonville, though, again, same with them. They're struggling on offense. Offensive line is very suspect. Trevor Lawrence, I thought, played a better game than he did the last 2 weeks. I thought that's very fair against a very tough defense in Atlanta. I thought Atlanta has a really nice defensive line that can really get a lot of pressure on teams like Jacksonville, who is right now a very beatable team, and I thought they kind of were last year. But Trevor Lawrence made some really big time plays. He threw some big time dots to some of his receivers. I know he was big into getting Christian Kirk involved, which I believe right now looks like is probably his number one right now. I don't know where Calvin Ridley really is. I know Calvin Ridley, after a whole year of sitting out last year and due to suspension for gambling purposes, because of that, I don't know if it's because he's rusty and he's still trying to get himself back into the groove of how the game of football is played, or whatever the reason is. but he's just not really much where to be found at all. Only catching 2 catches for 38 yards and a touchdown. That kind of helped out my fantasy team a little bit this week. But Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram are pretty much his top 2 guys right now. As soon as he can find a way to get Calvin Ridley the ball more, they could be a scary offense, but chances are they're not going to be that scary this year unless, towards the end of the year when they start kind of getting to like the meat of their schedule, when they start playing like tough teams like a Buffalo or Cincinnati and those kind of teams, they'll meet their match, but, right now they can kind of get away with it. But when those tough teams play, like I've said earlier in the season, if they can beat teams like Kansas City, which they already lost to Kansas City, they play Buffalo next week. They play Cincinnati eventually, who's struggling right now as well on offense. And I believe they also play Baltimore at this point this season. And Pittsburgh will be a tough game for them. So they have some tough games going in this year. And if they can't win any of those games that they need to prove themselves that they're a winning franchise, they're a team that's a dark horse, they're not going anywhere right now. Like they just aren't. Trevor Lawrence, the way that he's playing right now, this was probably his best game of the season, in my personal opinion. I thought it was one of his better games this season. And I feel that this offense is just not that great. I don't think they have really done anything yet that really has scared anybody. So I think they'll get better as the season goes on, maybe. But they need to start proving it now before things get kind of ugly, because their schedule is going to get a little tougher with some of those top dogs that they have to play eventually. But we'll see what happens. But I don't think they're as right now. They're not playing like a top 10 team like we thought they were going to be this year, and that was the biggest fear that I had from them from last year. I just didn't think they were. I didn't think they were that top team last year, and I still kind of think they're not going to be that top 10 team this year until they fix those things and until they prove something. So that's an important factor when you're looking at that right there. All right, now here's another team that I feel like is a big surprise this year, and that's the Colts with Anthony Richardson. This wasn't a pretty start to the game. Obviously, the Rams were kind of kicking butt in the beginning of the game. It was 20-0 at half. Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua were getting, having some big time plays, getting the ball. Kareem Williams was also having a big day on the ground as well. And, what can I say about the Rams right now? They are a legitimate dark horse right now that, they're showing a lot of people that they're still a team to beat, which is surprising because we didn't think that this Rams team was going to be good this year. We didn't think they were going to come off as hot as they've been coming off the last, couple of weeks and since the beginning of the season. Like, we didn't expect them to beat Seattle the way they did. We didn't expect them to play the game against the 49ers that they did. So they're really playing some really tough football, and Matthew Stafford is playing back at that elite level that he did 2 years ago, which is impressive to me. For a guy that struggled last year, a guy that went through a lot of injuries and a lot of adversity, it's great to see that he's back in action and he's helping this team getting back on track of things. And when you take a look at the Colts, now let's talk about the Colts a little bit. They are also another team that is actually playing a lot better sooner than we thought they were going to be in the NFC South. And this team, the Texans, these are 2 teams right now that we didn't think they were ready just yet. They probably would have needed some more time before they really came out on top. But man alive, I mean, guys, the Colts are good. There's no other way around it. They're probably not a great team. They're probably inconsistent. Anthony Richardson is probably an inconsistent passer, which we kind of thought that was going to be the case when he was getting drafted and he was named as the starter day one. But the guy put up some really good points. He threw for 200 yards. His completion percentage wasn't there. I mean, 11 for 25. That's less than 50% of his passes for 200 yards and 2 touchdown passes. And then you carry the ball 10 times for 56 yards and you get a touchdown out of that. I think Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, whoever's at quarterback here, I believe the quarterback position is a lot better than we thought they were. That's just me being completely honest with you. That's also proving to me that I was wrong amongst many others, like analysts, and nobody thought that the Colts were going to be um, ready to go or win as many games as they've been winning already this season, and they've proven that they've been doing that. So I hats off to the Colts, man. I mean, no other way around it. And then when Jonathan Taylor comes back, apparently some news reports are saying that he's coming back this week. He's going to practice with the team. So if he gets back into this game, just imagine what the team is going to be like on the ground. They're going to be one of the most electrifying run teams in the NFL. I mean, they may not be the most consistent when it comes to their record or stat wise, but yeah, I think if you are any other team that is not the Colts, or anybody that's playing in this division, like Jacksonville, for example, who almost, had a kind of a blow, almost blew the game for them when they played the Colts in week one. They can, I think they can compete with a lot of different teams in the NFL. I really do. And I think they're a team that is ready and they're poised and they're ready to go. Like they want to prove something to the whole nationwide. So I have no other way to really describe on how I really feel about Anthony Richardson, except that he is exactly what I thought he was going to be for the Colts. And that's also credit to Shane Steichen, who worked with Jalen Hurts, designed a good offensive playbook for Jalen Hurts, and got him to get used to the ball, of how to play in the NFL, using his running ability to help carry the ground game, which wasn't much of anything from last year. And, with Anthony Richardson and similar similar traits with Jalen Hurts, it's amazing to really see of how well Shane Steichen's been doing as a first-year head coach. And I feel like he's better than a lot of other coaches in the NFL right now. That's just me being honest. I think he's better right now than, obviously, Brandon Staley. I think he's better than Josh McDaniels, and I like Josh McDaniels, but he's been losing games and not making some very good play calls as an offensive guy. I like what Shane Steichen has done. I think he's built a new culture, and I think this is a team that is going to get better as the season goes on. And I think the Texans are another team that's really surprising a lot of people too. Like, these are the teams that we haven't really talked about all offseason, with the overshadow of the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, and with different other teams as well, like the Giants coming back or having another big year under Danny Dimes, and Brian Dable, who's just coming off of a Coach of the Year win. Like, yeah, what else can I really say? This Colts team is a lot better than what we thought they were. They're not great, but their ground game is very good. If they can get their passing game going, if Anthony Richardson can get consistent and get a consistent pass game going, involve Michael Pittman more, this team is going to be, and their other receivers too, like Josh Downs, who's had a couple good games, just needs to get a bit more involved as a rookie, and Alec Pierce and everybody, and their tight end position needs to get more involved. They can be a top 25, top 20 team this year. They really could be if they continue to improve the way that they are improving right now. So that's my thought about the Colts. That's really what I like about them this year. The Rams, they're still finding ways to win games without Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp should be coming back sometime this week. He's practicing this week. He might be sitting out for one more week. We don't really know for sure. But nevertheless, once he gets back, watch out, guys. This is going to be an electrifying offense. Just imagine Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, Kareem Williams. Yeah, this team is they're ready to go. They are ready to really surprise a lot of people as well. So two of the teams that we didn't think were going to be good this year are surprising a lot of people, and that's really good to really hear about for two teams that struggled last year. All right, next game, you've got the Browns and the Ravens. So that's the next game to talk about here. No Deshaun Watson in this game. He was ruled out on Sunday with having Dorian Thompson-Robinson be the starter for this game in his first NFL career debut. What a dreadful game for Thompson-Robinson. that it was. I don't think you would have ever expected to have your NFL debut to start the way that it did in this game. He looked absolutely dreadful in this game, and I felt so bad just even seeing him watch this. Just watching this offense and knowing the talent that they have on this team, you can tell that they were missing Deshaun Watson, even though that he has not really been the most consistent quarterback out there. But you can tell that they just did not play well for Thompson Robinson at all in this particular game. Elijah Moore couldn't get anything going. Amari Cooper only caught a ball. David Njoku was the top guy for 46 yards. That was it. His running ability, his 4 carries for 24 yards, 19 for 36 passing attempts, 121 yards and 3 picks. That's not the way that you want to start. And to start off your NFL debut against not only an AFC North divisional foe, but a team that is not easy to play against anyway in the Baltimore Ravens. That's not how you want to start your debut as a player in the NFL. This was a really, really hard game for the Browns. It was an ugly game to watch, amongst other ugly games as well. This was not the only ugly game from this weekend, but this game most definitely was a very ugly game for the Browns. Their defense was not doing enough to keep this team in check. That's what it comes down to. Just was not doing enough to keep this team in check, and that's why they basically lost this game, because they just could not get anything started. They couldn't get anything going on offense. They couldn't stop Lamar Jackson at all. So I don't know what the Browns are going to be like this year now. I mean, they've been so wildly inconsistent with losing 2 games, then winning 2 games, and with them coming in and beat the Bengals the way they did, to beat the Titans the way they did, and then to go out there and lose to Pittsburgh by 2 defensive touchdowns, or losing to the Ravens that you did. Like, I don't know how good this Browns team really is with or without Deshaun Watson. Like, I don't know if the Browns would have won or done much more if Deshaun Watson was in this game. But regardless, though, I mean, just not a very good debut to start off, and not a good team to start off your career with. Just like with C.J. Stroud, who started his NFL career against the Ravens, and that was not a great game by C.J. Stroud there, but didn't turn the ball over, didn't throw any interceptions at all. But this is not an easy team to play in general, and if you're a rookie and you have to go up against this team, that's not a fun experience. Good luck. Good luck with that. That's all I got to say on that. So, yeah, but Lamar Jackson had a Lamar Jackson type of game. Only threw the ball 19 times, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns. They have to rely on their running game still. Lamar Jackson as their guy to pretty much help them score on the ground, because they can't get anything started in the passing game without Mark Andrews at the helm, which had a pretty good game here, Zay Flowers. But the Ravens are still kind of a team that obviously they're going to beat you in any given way. They can still beat you. You have to plan to beat them. But they're also a very beatable team as long as your defense can contain Lamar Jackson. When you see Lamar Jackson having to throw from the pocket and do the things that he is not very comfortable in doing, your chances are of winning those kind of games against the Ravens is very, very well possible. That could definitely happen in any case. So, yeah, there's not much more I can really say about this game. It was a very ugly game. Despite with all the injuries that the Ravens have right now on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, it's impressive that they were still able to win the game the way that they did. But I think they also lucked out with not having Deshaun Watson. Otherwise, it probably could have been a different and more challenging type of game if that were to occur. All right, so going back to other teams that struggled, the Panthers. The Panthers are 0-4. They still have not won a game with Bryce Young, and they didn't even win a game with Andy Dalton last week, who I thought played better than what we've seen from Bryce Young so far. As the overall number 1 quarterback, he's not playing up to that standard yet. He still has yet to prove himself. He still has yet to win a game with the Panthers. Comes down to offensive line. Offensive line is terrible. Some decent weaponry around him, better than we thought they would be, like Adam Thielen stepping up and has been a good, reliable target for Bryce Young. DJ Chark, the ground game of Miles Sanders hasn't really been efficient yet. An offensive line that's terrible. Defense is good. Defensive line is pretty underrated. Their secondary is underrated, but no consistency there too. So I don't know how I feel about the Panthers right now. Like, do I feel like they're going to win any games this season? Yeah, they probably will win a couple of games this season under Bryce Young, but it's not going to be an easy kind of way for him to win any games because their offense is just very dreadful, and Bryce Young is not playing up to the hype of being that number one overall guy. Now, don't let anything be an effect of how the Vikings played because they also didn't play all that great either. Kirk Cousins had a couple turnovers in this game. Justin Jefferson was his most reliable person that he could rely on in that sense, and that's also a big factor there too. So Kirk Cousins threw a couple interceptions here. I thought their ground game looked a lot better than it has the first 3 weeks. Offensive line is good enough. They can get things done, but really they're not playing all that great either. And their defense is also very dreadful too. Although they played well against the Panthers and were able to score a defensive touchdown off of them, they're still not a very good defense. So I can't say that this was a good matchup. I mean, it was a good matchup in terms of the offense for the Panthers to match up well with the match up very well with the Minnesota offense or defense rather. We thought it would have been more effective. We thought it would have been more focalized and everything, but it hasn't really lived up to that expectation. So I don't think the Panthers are going to win very many games this year. As long as Bryce Young is playing the way that he is, I don't think they're going anywhere this year. He is probably, right now, he is the, obviously he's the worst rookie quarterback to start right now. He has not lived up to that expectation yet. And maybe he will by the end of the year. Maybe he'll get better, and maybe they'll win a couple of games down the stretch. But right now, man, I don't see them really doing anything like that anytime soon. But this game was just absolutely dreadful. Offensive lines were dreadful. Everything about this game was just, what can I really say that was really that positive about the Panthers, except they had maybe one or two good plays, and those plays were on defense for getting the turnover and keeping them in the game. What else can I really say about that game? So next we have the Tennessee Titans. Like I don't know, guys. I'm just gonna put my head down here for a second because I can't seem. I don't think anybody can figure out how good or how bad the Titans really are. 27 points. They scored 27 points against the Bengals defense. A struggling offense, no offensive line at all, no wide receivers outside of DeAndre Hopkins, who has not been a top guy yet. Derrick Henry, really their only guy to rely on, and you score 27 points on the Bengals. Guys, I'm telling you right now, for the Bengals side, this is a problem. If you were losing to, obviously you kind of knew you were going to lose to the Browns. That was kind of true. You knew you were going to lose to the Browns. You knew you were going to lose to the, you knew you were going to lose to the Browns. You knew you were going to lose to whoever else they played. I can't remember who they played now. Probably could have lost to the Rams, and then now you lost to the Titans. They lost to the Ravens. That's who it was. So you knew you were going to lose to the Browns. You had a pretty good idea that you were going to lose to the Ravens, but now you're coming in here and you're losing to the Titans, 27-3, a team that can't score any points on offense. They got smoked by the Browns. They lost to the Saints, who are also struggling and aren't very good on offense. And you somehow found a way to beat the Bengals 27-3. Like, maybe that's me just being exaggerating the whole thing. But to be honest with you, I'm really not, because that's insane to think about, that you letting this happen. Like, you're scoring 27 points without an offensive line, with Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback. No offense, I love Ryan Tannehill, but he has not been that great this season. He's made a lot of critical errors um, for this team that's prevented them from doing anything. But man alive, like, that is embarrassing to for a team that is, has Super Bowl aspirations, and then you lose to the Titans that struggle on offense. And you lose to them 27-3. And let's talk about the Bengals side. Like, I understand, like, 3 points because the Titans defense is electrifying. They are one of the most elite defenses in the league. So I will say that and give the Titans credit where credit deserves right there, because their defense is electrifying. But I'm telling you, man, Joe Burrow is just not playing the Joe Burrow football that we all know that he can play. And that has a lot to do with, one, his offensive line that stinks, and two, because of his injury, his calf injury. It's very evident and it's very clear that Joe Burrow is not fully healthy yet. I feel the Bengals wanted to rush Burrow back to the season because when you take a look at it, his quarterback depth, there's no good quarterbacks at all that are, going to go ahead and win all these games, like against the Browns or the Ravens or the Bengals of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So that's understandable to me. But if a guy is really that hurt, your offensive line you can't trust for the life of you, you gotta really make some really critical decisions of how you're gonna approach that situation. Because do you risk the factor of losing Joe Burrow for the year because of a calf injury for something that you were very complacent in trying to do, or do you have him play and get beat up against an offensive line that is one of the worst in the NFL and has been for quite a few years? These are like very critical decisions that you have to make for yourself. And if Jamar Chase was not into this offense, I feel Joe Burrow would be even worse. Because without Jamar Chase, T. Higgins not reliable, Tyler Boyd not really all that existent right now. You can't trust all of your backups that you have. Joe Mixon, the ground game, here and there, hit or miss. Like, what do you do in that situation? Do you go ahead and you get a veteran quarterback that's a backup to Joe Burrow and you play him? That's the way that you probably should do it. So I don't know what's going on with the Bengals. I know they're taking their strides, they're taking their lumps early in the season, but this is the time for them to panic right now. They're 1-3 right now. They got to go back next week and they got to play another team. They got to go back and they got to play again next week. And the team that they're playing up against next week it's not going to be an easy game for them. They got to play the Cardinals. The Cardinals are a team that's high up in the air. They could be a lot better than what we thought they were. It's a winnable game, but it's not a guarantee that they will win. You know what I mean? Because they've already been upset by the Titans, got beat down the way that they did, and if that offensive line does not block and play the way that they should be playing, the the Bengals season could go down south very quickly. Now, as far as the Titans go, when they go into next week, I don't know what their record's going to look like. They play the Colts next week. It's a game that they should win, but again, the Colts have actually looked better than the Titans offensively. So I would not be surprised if they came in and they won this game, the Colts. If they came in at home to beat the Titans at home, I just would not really be surprised about that because of just how inconsistent the offense is. Guys, like, come on, this is 27 points we're talking about. The Titans scoring 27. They scored 27 on the Chargers. Well, in that case, that's just very bad coaching right there. But the Bengals defense is pretty good. And the defense led up 27 on the Titans. I understand it's Derrick Henry, but that's embarrassing. I'm sorry, but that's just extremely embarrassing if you're a defensive coordinator to give up that many points against a very, 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 very bad offense. All right, and speaking of other bad offenses, we got to talk about this one: the Saints and the Bucks. Man, how much better is Derek Carr than Jameis Winston? I don't know. And I like Derek Carr. I've always defended Derek Carr. I've always been the factor of like always being a believer in him. But right now, I don't know if I can really put my trust in him because I don't think he's played very well since he's been to New Orleans. I understand he got 2 wins under his belt against a struggling Titans offense, a struggling offense for the Panthers. But then he had the game won against the Packers. They were blowing him out, dead in the water, but he got injured in that game. This would have been the game that I felt like, because obviously Derek Carr is playing injured. I probably would have sat out Derek Carr and let Jameis Winston play this game and see what would have happened right there and just have that QB battle between two of the 20. I believe they were both drafted in that same year, 2015, I think it was, or 2016, whatever that year was. I think they were drafted together in 2014 or 15. They were. I can't remember exactly. I believe they were both drafted the same year. I'll look that real quick. But regardless, so I would have probably played Jameis Winston and just see what have happened. I understand. I think he did have a pass in this game, which was an interception. So I understand that part of it. But I would have just played it out with Jameis and see what would have happened because I felt since Jameis Winston has been with the Saints, I feel that he has played very well. Um, not great, inconsistent at times, but at the same time, though, I feel that in this particular case, I don't know which quarterback is better. Jameis Winston, who turns the ball over, and Derek Carr, who is very erratic under pressure. I don't really know how that would have really came down. I just don't. So, but the Bucks, they could be better than what we thought they were. They really could be. I'm not like discrediting them. I never wanted to discredit them. I didn't think they were going to be like a bottom 5 team. I didn't think they were going to be great, but I didn't think they were going to be a bottom 5 team. And they're playing, an electrifying defense. Their defense has been great all year so far. Baker Mayfield is probably playing his best football that we've seen in his career so far with Todd Bowles as his head coach. We didn't think that Todd Bowles was anything special. We didn't think he was NFL head coach worthy, but deep down, I think he's a better coach right now than Dennis Allen. So in some ways, I'm not really surprised that the Bucks did win this game. I really am. I'm not, but the Saints just kind of blew it in their own way, and their offense is just continuing to struggle in so many different ways. They really are continuing to struggle, and that's really hurting the Saints' chances of winning the division. Because I don't feel that I don't know who's going to win the division right now, because I feel like all the teams in the NFC South are all close within one another. They're all just weird. They're not, none of them are insanely talented. No one's like the top dog, the dark horse, or anything like that. So it's kind of hard to see who's going to go to win the division and who's going to go into the playoffs. And I would feel like right now the Bucks probably could be their only chance. I really do think that the Bucks are the only team that I feel is one of the better ones. And the Saints, I thought they would have been better, but they haven't been able to figure it out yet. They still have not been able to get anything going offensively. The offensive line has been very subpar. The quarterback play has been very subpar. The offense and the weapons, have been good, but Derek Carr is not getting them the ball quick enough. And the run game is not there either. Alvin Kamara came back this week from his suspension. He didn't really do anything to help the team out. He didn't get any better. So it's a tough call. It really, really is. So I don't know who they're going to go with next week. As far as I know, Derek Carr is still playing until, he gets severely injured. I thought he would have been not playing this week. I thought it would have been more of a tougher week for him to play because of his shoulder injury, but he played, and it showed that he struggled against a very good defense. And I don't know, guys. I mean, I love Derek Carr, but there's only so many stuff that I'm going to say that there's only so much excuses that I can come up with for him. I'm not trying to come up with any excuses for him, but I'm also blaming him in a way of how the team is playing right now. He's just not playing up to that standard, and a lot of that has to do with coaching. So, you know, I'm at a loss of words of what to say, but good win for the Bucks, though. Good win for Baker Mayfield. This was a very big statement type of win. Like the Saints have had the Bucks number for quite a few years, and maybe the past decade. And Todd Bowles came in there and he proved everybody wrong that his team is still relevant. His team is still good, and they got a good quarterback who I feel is probably better than Derek Carr right now. And who would have ever thought that I would have said that? I never would have thought I said that. Okay, next. The hottest offense right now in the NFL. We all know who it is because we've heard about it for the last 3 weeks. We know exactly who the hottest offense is in the NFL. The Miami Dolphins. Dropped 70 points against a very, very, very bad Broncos defense. The question is, though, the team who stopped them from scoring more than 20 points was which team? The Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills won this game outright. They won it. They won it overall. They came in here. They played their game. Josh Allen had a near perfect game. Like, what else is there really else to say about this? It's amazing. The team that everybody thought that nobody was going to be able to stop the Dolphins, they probably would have came in undefeated. They probably would have won all those games, go to the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl, and then they got stumped by the Bills. A team that we didn't know what their offense was going to be like. A team that the Bills were playing a better, the Bills were playing a better team than they did the last couple of weeks. Played the Raiders, destroyed the Raiders, destroyed the Raiders, destroyed the Commanders, and then they went in here and they absolutely obliterated the Dolphins in Buffalo. If this game was in Miami, it probably would have been a lot more different. But the truth of the matter is the Bills are back. The Bills look like the team that could be winning a Super Bowl this year because they just stomped on the Dolphins. How crazy and how ironic is that? Let's be honest. How ironic is that? Josh Allen, again, a near perfect game for him. I believe he was 21 for 25, something on the borderlines of that. I'll take a look at the stats real quick. 4 touchdown passes, 3 of them to Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs had an amazing game in this one. Had nearly 150 yards of receiving. And no turnovers for Josh Allen. 4 touchdown passes. He had a rushing touchdown. Carried the ball 4 times for 17 yards and got a touchdown. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? Let's just be honest right there. All right. The Dolphins, on the other hand, who they've got... Oh, no, I'm sorry. Stephon Diggs had 120 yards. I thought he had close to 150. I guess I just kind of lost track because he had 3 touchdowns that game. And if Stephon Diggs was not in this game, if Stephon Diggs never came to the Bills or have left the Bills, I don't know what would have happened. I really don't. So you take a look at the Dolphins, 2 of the fastest wide receivers in the league, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle's still kind of struggling through some injuries, so kind of understand that. Devin Etienne, 8 carries for 100 yards. He had 2 touchdowns in this game. That's a guy that I would be giving the ball to a lot. If you can't pass the ball, I would definitely give him the ball. That's the one thing I do have to say about the Bills defense is that they can stop the pass. They can get a lot of pressure on you. But my biggest concerns is, especially when they get into the later part of the NFL season, what does concern me about them is how they're going to be able to stop the run game. And that's something that I was really concerned about when they played the Jets week 1, is that they gave up so much yardage to Breece Hall. And I feel that's the same way of how they played against the Dolphins in terms of that, the rushing game. So that is also a concern right there. I don't know how that's going to kind of work out into their favor, but that's something that their defense will have to figure out. That's their only biggest flaw on defense is being able to slow down the run, which they obviously didn't do it because they gave up 8 carries and over 100 yards in 8 carries. That's insane. So the Bills defense has its struggles. They also have their moments of where they are really good, but they're also not the greatest defense. Well, they are a really good defense. I can't say they're not the greatest defense because they really are an excellent defense. They just don't always play up against really good teams like that. But they played very well against the Dolphins. And I think a lot of that is because the Dolphins play the Bills twice a year and they understand how the game is played. They understand how they know each other very well because they played so many games over the years and have had a lot of really high scoring close games over the years between the two teams. So, in a way, I do understand why. Um, but that's all I got to really say about the Bills, guys. I mean, they are back. They are a team to be reckoned with. They're a team that I believe has a greater shot. I think if the Bengals keep going down south and the Chiefs kind of struggle to kind of win these kind of games on offense, like the Bills could be the best team in the AFC right now. They really could be, and I think that bounce back game after losing to the Jets in Week 1 is going to prove to them that they're very motivated. They're a team that is for real. They want to win the Super Bowl, but they got to be able to beat the good teams first. And this was just the biggest test that they've had so far that shows that they can beat really good teams. This is like their biggest one. Once they play Cincinnati, once they play Kansas City, and once they're able to beat those two teams, then we're going to really see and understand exactly who the Bills are, where they're at, and if they're going to be Super Bowl contenders or Super Bowl champs going into the off season. But I really do think the Bills are back. Now, don't get me wrong, the Dolphins. I like the Dolphins this year. I feel that they are a very high, strong offense. I really do. They're a tough offense to beat. They're very fast on both the ground and in the passing game. I really do believe that. But they also have their flaws too. I think if you slow down and you double cover Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, if you slow down the run game, you're going to be able to beat them. I think you can score on them on your offense and match up really well against their defense. Because I feel the Vic Fangio defense of how they play the Dolphins, I think is better than what they had last year. But their secondary also isn't always as fast. They don't always play up to tempo on defense. I'm not saying they're not good, because I think they're a good defense, but they're also kind of overhyped on defense too, and they are beatable. You can beat them on defense. That's all I got to say on that. And if you do those big things like I mentioned, you're going to win the game. You can definitely win the game. They are a beatable team, though. But they're also not an easy team to beat when they're very hot, especially. When they're very hot, they're not easy to beat. All right, so the Bears and the Broncos, the Tank Bowl. We all thought that, this was the worst game of the week, and in all reality, yeah, it's two of the bottom two worst teams in the NFL, no question. But the Broncos and Russell Wilson, they came back and did Russell Wilson things, and they came back and beat the Bears after the Bears were up 28-7. Like Justin Fields, I thought was going to run away with this game because he was having a game. He was having a day on this team, with 4 touchdown passes, but turnovers again, guys. Like that's the biggest thing about the Bears is their turnovers. They have to stop turning over the football. Their offense proved that they can play good. They did because the Broncos defense is terrible. They've been playing terrible. But defenses and offenses, when you take a look at their offensive line, when you're taking a look at matchups and everything, if you know their defense is struggling, you're going to win games. You are most certainly going to win yourself some games. But think about these stats for a minute. Justin Fields threw the ball 35 times. I would have never, ever would have thought to pass the ball 35 times with just he did. 335 yards, 4 touchdown passes, an interception. You also had 4 carries for 25 yards, but no touchdowns there. Your top receiver is the guy that you traded your number 1 overall pick for in DJ Moore, and he got involved in this game. That was important. You needed to get your top guy involved in order to be able to win the game. And you did. You nearly won this game. But your defense sold. Your coaches sold on you. Therefore, you lost the game. Therefore, you lost the game. So I don't know what else really that can really be said about this, because there really isn't much more you can say about this. So again, neither team very good. So I'm not really counting this as a good win for the Broncos. It's nice that they won, but their defense still hasn't shown that they can play. Their offense can play fine. I think their offense is better than what they were last year. Russell Wilson, 223 yards, 3 touchdown passes, 4 carries, 13 yards. Passed the ball to Cortland Sutton, Jaleel McLaughlin, Brandon Johnson. Like, your offense is decent. Not bad, but, your defense has to get under control. Same with the Bears. Your coaching staff. He threw the coaching, Justin Fields a couple of weeks ago threw his coaches under the bus because they're not doing what he wants them to do. He's not being able to play the way that he knows he can play, and they're not developing him. I'm not giving any excuses for Justin Fields. I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. I think he's extremely athletic, but he hasn't proven anything as a passer yet until this game. He definitely proved that because he played a defense that was bad. It was the worst defense he faced all year. They just lost to the Dolphins by 50 points. That's embarrassing right there. I feel like any team should be able to beat you. If you score 70 points on an NFL team, I feel like any team should be beating you at that point. But that wasn't the factor there. And it all came back down to coaching. That's the Bears' problem right there. They can never get a lot of things right. Coaching, quarterback, and ownership. They can just never get that right. All right, next game we got the Eagles and the Commanders. Now, I didn't watch this game. I'll be honest with you. I really didn't watch many of these games, to be honest with you. But what a game Jalen Hurts had. I thought this was his best game of the year. And not just because he played against the Commanders. I thought the Commanders and Sam Howell played a lot better than what they did last week. But when you think about it, though, the Commanders' defense is pretty good. There's no going away around it. Their defense is pretty good. We thought we would have seen at least a couple of turnovers here like we did last year. Last year, Washington came into Philly and they beat them, giving the Eagles their first loss of the year last year. And that was a very standout statement win for the Commanders. And that really is what kept Ron Rivera his job. I felt like the Commanders were the better team in this game. But the Eagles also had a very nice, solid game plan, too, to be able to win this game. A.J. Brown was playing the electrifying A.J. Brown that we all know that he can play at. We know he can play at an elite level, and he absolutely was able to do that. 2 touchdown passes, 175 yards for 9 receptions. He got himself involved, and DeAndre Swift, too, guys. I really like the addition. I thought they did a really nice job with the addition of DeAndre Swift. That's really improved the ground game way more than what they had last year in Miles Sanders. And Jalen Hurts looks better than ever before, too. He was passing the ball for 319 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Again, both of them went to A.J. Brown. Got Devonta Smith involved. DeAndre Swift, again, was involved in this, too. And, the more different playmakers you get involved in this team, the more electrifying, the more tougher they're going to be able to you're going to have to beat them. So that's how I feel about that. This was a really big win for the Eagles, but what also does concern me about the Eagles is that they've won so many of these close games. They've won so many of these close games. This season they won a close game week 1. In week 1 when they played against the Patriots, should have probably lost that game. Won a tight game against the Vikings. Won a tough game in week 3 against. Sorry if I can't remember all the teams that the Eagles have faced so far. It's been a nice solid start to the season. They played the Bucs. They played a tough defense right there. That was probably their biggest margin of wins so far. Then they just came in and beat the Commanders. So there are some concerning things, though, about the Eagles. So I'm not going to overhype them and say that they're going to win the Super Bowl or any of that stuff. I'm not going to go ahead and say that by any means. But what I am going to say, and I'm going to be honest with you about, the Eagles. I think their defense is kind of not as good as it used to be. Like, I think they kind of obviously losing that piece to Gardner Johnson was the biggest blow of your season for your defense, at least. But they also didn't lose a whole lot. I felt like they gained about the same kind of talent as they did last year. That's kind of what I've said in the all offseason. I still kind of stand by that. The offensive line is still very good. Defensive line is still very good. Secondary is a bit of a question, especially at their safety position too. Without Gardner Johnson, Darius Slay is still there, but he's also getting older. How much more can he really be playing at that elite level that we know he can play at? And then you have Bradbury on the other side, Jalen Carter, who's had a pretty nice start to his season. Defensive line, the best in the league. And then you have playmakers left and right. So, again, you have the same talent as you did last year. You probably replace some with probably slightly better talent. I feel like their run game is better this year without Miles Sanders. I thought DeAndre Swift is playing really well. I think he is, at least. So I think that's a big upgrade to kind of to kind of like see like how their run game is going to go, which was kind of like an if factor for last year. If their run game was better, they could be better off to win some of these games. And I think with DeAndre Swift, maybe that will give them that opportunity to maybe go into the Super Bowl and maybe win a ring or something like that, which I think is very highly possible that they can compete for a Super Bowl in that case. But I don't feel like that their luck is as good as it was a year ago. Now let's talk about the Commanders, though. So Sam Howell, been playing some pretty good football. Not great, but he's been playing better football. And this team is better than what we thought they were going to be this year. I think defensively is good. I think if they had an offensive line, this is like their biggest problem right here. If the Commanders had a good offensive line, which is one of the most overrated offensive lines in the league right now, if they had a better offensive line, this team probably could be a little bit better. They just probably could be just a little bit better. But the fact is, Sam Howell's under pressure a lot, has to get rid of the ball a lot. It's putting a lot of pressure on a young second-year quarterback. If you don't have an offensive line, you're not always going to be the most successful. But he's been playing quite well. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say anything negative about Sam Howell, because I think he has been playing very well. I think he's played at that Taylor Heineke level where he can get the team going and riled up on offense, and players like him for it. I don't think they didn't like Carson Wentz at all because they didn't play well with him when he was under center for this team last year. They had to make that switch to Taylor Heineke. Then he benched him for Carson Wentz again. Didn't want to play for Carson Wentz. And then Sam Howell came in there, and he absolutely obliterated the Cowboys. So I think he is a good quarterback. I think he is going to get himself better. I don't think he's going to be the elite level. I don't think he's the long-term answer. But he's serviceable enough for this team that he will get them some big-time wins. I think they can upset some people, and I think their defense is the healthiest and the most well-coached than what we've seen it over the last couple of seasons. And Eric Bieniemy, as the offensive coordinator, also called some really nice big plays too for the team too that kind of kept them close. Now, the only question that I feel like as far as the Commanders go, I know they had to score that touchdown. I know offensively they've been moving the ball. I thought they moved the ball quite well against the Eagles in this particular game. My biggest question is maybe like when I was listening to some podcasts earlier this morning, I was listening to The Herd, Colin Cowherd, one of my favorite people to listen to. When I was listening to him this morning, he mentioned something which was interesting point about going for two. Now, as for myself, I'm a conservative play caller, so for me, I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable with my offense going out there and just taking the game into OT. But in this factor here, when you score a touchdown like that late in the game, I probably would have gone in and probably tried to go for a two and win the game, because I felt their offense outplayed the defense of the Eagles by a long shot. I thought they scored a lot more points. I think they left a lot more points on the field for sure. But I thought they were winning this game basically because of offense. So I felt that if they would have gone for two, that would have been more of a statement win right there, and they would have shocked everybody. So I understand you had to go for the extra point after that touchdown pass, and I understand all of that stuff, but I feel like that going for two in that situation because your offense is pretty unstoppable right now, and the Eagles defense wasn't going to be able to stop you right there. Would have tried it, gone for two. Either you would have won the game outright or lost outright. So that's my only biggest thing that I thought was kind of interesting to mention. So that's my biggest thing on that. But overall, exciting win for the Eagles. Not a win I would be satisfied with, but obviously the fans enjoy it. I'm not an Eagles fan by any means, or I'm not a fan of Washington either. But I think Washington does have a lot of factors to play into their season. They could be a lot better than what we thought, and they could be better as the season goes on. All right, let's talk about the Texans, man. The Texans are better than what we thought they were. Like, are the Texans already better than what we thought they would be? I think so. I think, like, right now, guys, CJ Stroud is breaking all sorts of rookie NFL records. He's breaking records left and right. It's not even funny the way that it's doing it. He is just absolutely playing out of his mind. When you take a look at his stats, there are no interceptions yet. And as a rookie QB, usually by like the first week, you already at least throw one interception. Or in some cases, as rookie quarterbacks, you throw interceptions, immediately almost in like your first drive, maybe. But in this particular case, he's already over 1,200 yards of passing. He hasn't been below 240 yards. 2 touchdown passes in each of his last 3 games. Over 100 quarterback rating. So overall, right now, he's completed 62% of his passes, 1,212 yards, 6 touchdown passes, no interceptions, and a QBR rating of 100.6. What other rookie quarterback can you say has ever been able to achieve that before? The guy also just turned 22 today, so happy birthday to you, CJ Stroud. Have a great day. But this is a great way to start out your NFL career. You go to a team that's very lowly, close to poverty standards, and you're going in there and you're carrying this team on your back as a rookie. That's a lot to be asking for from a rookie quarterback. To be asking a rookie quarterback, for that matter. That is something huge. And he has stepped up in the biggest moments possible. And I think just going back to Sunday's game against the Steelers, yeah, he was a little over 50% of his completion passage, so maybe not exactly his perfect day there, but he still threw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdown passes. And against this Steelers defense, like, what? That is insane. So, rookie of the year for me right now, at least, I would be putting my vote in for CJ Stroud. I'm telling you guys, CJ Stroud is monstrous. Nobody wants to play the Texans right now. Nobody wants to play up against CJ Stroud. And they won their second game of the year. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy to think about. So congratulations to the Texans. Congratulations to CJ Stroud and everybody that plays with him. Tank Dell, Robert Woods. Like, you guys should be praising CJ Stroud for the way that your team is playing right now. Because I feel like if they would have went back with Davis Mills to start the season, they would automatically be 0-4 already. Like, that's not even an exaggeration. Davis Mills was not able to do any of the things that CJ Stroud is doing for this team right now. So I'm really happy that he's doing very well. I'm also happy for the franchise that they potentially have their future franchise quarterback. As long as everything stays to par, as long as they continue to work around him, I think he's going to be a very successful NFL quarterback. I really do. And I think he's going to be proving a lot of people wrong that, the Panthers should have taken him first and he was the better choice right now over Bryce Young. It's insane. All right, next game. And then as far as Kenny Pickett goes with this injury, right now it's questionable. Not much to really say about it, but it looks like it's a knee bruise. So Mitchell Trubisky probably will be playing next week, but we'll get more word on it later on this week. All right, next game we got to talk about this game. This is probably one of the more games I was able to really analyze and watch for at least the second half. but it was one of the more important ones, and that was the Raiders and the Chargers. So Jimmy Garoppolo out of this game. He had a concussion in this game, so we all thought it was going to be Brian Hoyer, but they announced on, I believe I saw it somewhere on like Saturday night, that Aiden O'Connell, the fourth round pick, was going to be playing for the Raiders. So I thought this was the better choice to go with Aiden O'Connell. I thought that despite getting sacked 6 times by none other than the Khalil Mack, it was the Khalil Mack show the entire time in that pass rush. Despite that, and despite Asante Samuel getting that interception at the goal line, I thought Aiden O'Connell had a pretty good start to his rookie year. Not great, not fantastic, but I thought he looked efficient. I thought he looked more composed. I thought he looked more comfortable than Jimmy Garoppolo has. I'm just being honest right there. So, with Aiden O'Connell, with some of his passes and everything, I feel like he has a good grip of the ball. I think he pushes the ball down the field better than Jimmy Garoppolo has. But I feel like if he does have more connections with his wide receivers, he could be a lot better. But right now he's just a rookie that's still learning the game, so it's going to probably take some time. Now, Josh McDaniels, on the other hand, I've been very critical of him the last couple of weeks. I'm going to be critical with him again. So this was a game that the Raiders, I didn't think they were going to get themselves, keep themselves in the game, because I didn't know if Brian Hoyer was going to be playing in this game or if it was going to be Aiden O'Connell. Nobody really knew who was going to be the starter for the Raiders until like late Saturday night into Sunday morning. Like nobody really knew what it was going to be. But we kind of expected that the Raiders were going to be blown out just because how good the Chargers offense is, which they started out strong. They started out very, very hot. And I thought they were going to kind of run away with this game. 24-7, the Chargers led in this game. The Raiders were battling back. Aiden O'Connell had a rushing touchdown in this game. Josh Jacobs had his best game of the season so far. Not overly shocking there because the ground game, the Chargers' run defense has not been able to stop anybody. They still have proven that they can't stop the run yet. But, Josh McDaniels with some of his play calling, especially at the end right there, just I want to know, why do you throw the ball on the 4-yard line of your opponent? Why? It's first and goal. You just converted on fourth down to Davante Adams. You give it to your best running back. You tie the game up. You go into overtime. It's as simple as that. But nope. They decided we're going to go for a slant route. We're going to give the ball in there to either Davante or Jacoby Myers because those are our only two reliable receivers. But and then Aiden O'Connell threw that ball in there. Davante Adams wasn't even open. Threw that ball right into Asante Samuel's hand and threw the interception. Now, yes, that was Aiden O'Connell's fault. Obviously, the pass wasn't very good at all. He threw it way too soon. It was even worse of a play call. It was worse of a play call than it was of an Aiden O'Connell error. Like, obviously, we knew Aiden O'Connell would have made rookie mistakes. We understood that he wasn't going to go in there and exactly wow everybody as a fourth rounder. But he came into this game poised, composed. Overall, had a pretty good game. But to kind of end your career-starting game with the interception like that is crazy. And the fact that Brandon Staley still has a job after 4 weeks is also very impressive too. That defense has bailed them out twice. Otherwise, Brandon Staley would have been fired. That is no exaggeration. The offense for the Chargers disappeared. Justin Herbert was playing phenomenal the first half of this game. And I don't know what happened after that. I have no idea what happened after that. Just couldn't score again after that. Scored 24 points in the first half. They couldn't do anything after that. That was it. And for them to be able to win on defense after almost blowing it is incredible. But that was a terrible play by Josh McDaniels and the Raiders. And it was also a risky of a choice to, on a 3rd and long, when you realize that the Raiders have no timeouts left, to pass that ball deep to Joshua Palmer. That was a very big risk taker that they're very lucky they were able to get that, because they were not able to pass the ball very much at all in that entire second half. The Chargers I'm talking about. They weren't able to pass the ball very well at all the second half. So for them to be able to get that big pass in to Joshua Palmer and get him open was insane to see. Keenan Allen had another good game. Didn't quite have as great of a game as I thought he probably would have been more involved. But regardless, though, they still came out on top. They still win. A win's a win. Something to celebrate on. Brandon Staley, you keep your job for another week at least. But Josh McDaniels, man, you got to coach better games. You could have won this game easily if you would have just ran the ball to Josh Jacobs, take the game into OT possibly, or maybe could have won it by a field goal. But this game was definitely on Josh McDaniels yet again. 2 weeks in a row. Raiders fans want him gone. I don't know if I want to see him gone yet, but I think if he messes up one more week, then I'm done defending Josh McDaniels. I don't want to give him all the excuses in the world, because I feel like his play calling has been very questionable this year. And yes, he did beat the Broncos. That's not very hard to do because the Broncos are one of the worst teams in the National Football League. But for him to be able to call those kind of very bad play calls at the wrong time, that's a problem right there. So I feel even when Jimmy Garoppolo does come back, I feel you should be starting the rookie, Aiden O'Connell. Get him some experience. Let him build chemistry with this team. That the offense is supposed to be good, at least on paper, and see where he can take you. Because if you're trying to save your coaching job, you want to be a long-term coach here, I feel like you should do the right thing. Let the rookie take its lumps, and we'll see what happens. Because I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo has really been much of a factor for this team. I really don't. And we haven't really seen enough of Aiden O'Connell to really say that he is the guy. Now, obviously, we all saw him in preseason. We all fell in love with him very instantly, and we were all hoping to see him get some starting time in the NFL. And he did exactly that in week 4. And very well could possibly, moving forward for the season. But as soon as Jimmy Garoppolo comes back, he might be coming back. But the right thing to do is to see O'Connell, see how he does. But this was not a very good starting game for him to start out his NFL career, though. So that was tough to see. And he's probably going to have nightmares for the rest of the week about Khalil Mack. But they'll play the Packers next week. It's not going to be any easier. That's going to be a very tough game. So they'll need to get that one figured out. All right, next, the 49ers. They won this game 35-16. 49ers, what can I say? I've been saying it for weeks now. One of the most complete teams, if not the most complete team in the NFL right now, that could be poised to win a Super Bowl. I really do. I think their Super Bowl chances are extremely high. Arizona, on the other hand, Josh Dobbs, playing better than we thought he would be. That's just straight up facts. A lot better than what we thought he was going to be playing. So that's something to say right there. But it was too much of a battle right here for the 49ers. It was too much for the Cardinals to be able to handle. So the Niners got this win. It was a big win for them. So that's all I'm going to say on that, because I didn't really watch that game much. And Brock Purdy had a really good game in this game too, so he really got himself involved there too. Another game I don't want to spend too much time talking about, because we all kind of talked about it. We all see it already. We all know what it's like, and that was the Patriots and the Cowboys. We all know how this game ended. The Cowboys defense was just all over the Patriots offense. Mac Jones had some turnovers in this game. He had at least 3 that I know of. 2 of them were defensive touchdowns for the Cowboys. So worst loss of Bill Belichick's coaching career, at least. Probably Mac Jones' worst loss of his career. This game was just very ugly. It wasn't even anywhere close in the beginning of the game. They were just absolutely dead in the water. Their offense had no answers whatsoever, and the Patriots are now 1-3. So I don't know where the Patriots season is going right now, guys. It's downward spiraling very quickly. The Cowboys, on the other hand, are getting up and up and up and up on defense. Yeah, granted, they lost to the Cardinals, I get that. That was a fluke. Cardinals are better than we thought they were. But the Cowboys defense, if your offensive line isn't blocking, you're not winning very many games. If your offense isn't very good, you're not winning very many games. And they definitely, and the Patriots were one of those teams, along with the Giants, along with the Jets, that weren't able to match up very well with the Cowboys defense at all. Straight up facts right there. Just was not able to keep up with it. So the Cowboys won this game outright. Bill Belichick had the worst career coaching loss of his career. This thing was just ugly. And that's all I really want to say on that. But then we got to talk about this game right here. Two more games and then we'll be done with the podcast. But man, we got to talk about this game. First and foremost, we already heard about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. I'm done hearing about it at the NFL. I'm tired of hearing about it all over Facebook, social media. So I just want to get that out there. There, done. Now we'll talk about the game. The Chiefs and the Jets. The Jets, we're down 17-0. Had to make some adjustments on defense. And after being down 17, they shut down Patrick Mahomes entirely. Patrick Mahomes, this was one of his worst games that we've seen Patrick Mahomes play. One of his worst games. He didn't play a very good game at all, especially in the second half, because he couldn't score another touchdown with this team. Because the Jets defense came up with adjustments, they were able to make those adjustments and be able to keep Mahomes out of the equation, along with Travis Kelce too. So the Jets defense, I keep telling you guys, they're a top 10 defense in the league. Actually, probably even higher than that. Top 5. We'll say they're top 5. And it's amazing that they kept themselves in this game. Now, let's talk about the Jets offense. So their offensive line is still trash. Not very good. But let's talk about Zach Wilson for a second, okay? We know how Zach Wilson is. We know he's not the guy that's played well under pressure. We know he hasn't played well against very good teams or anything. But this was the perfect opportunity for Zach Wilson to go in there, get that statement win for the Jets, and pull off the upset. And I feel like the Jets got absolutely robbed in this game because of one really bad call that was made on the Jets defense. That was a horrible call to begin with. That's just plain and simple. It was a horrible call that was called there. And it was very evident that there was nothing wrong with that play that they were calling the flag on. I believe it was for Sauce Gardner. They were getting Sauce Gardner on a holding call on defense, which there really wasn't any holding, in my opinion. I felt that both players were, hand fighting. They were kind of pushing and shoving. They were getting hands on each other a little bit like that. But there was no blatant holding call. I felt that the Chiefs, on the other hand, had some more penalties, and they should have been called some more penalties in this game, but they absolutely weren't. So this just kind of proves to me that the refs are on the Chiefs' side, just like what everyone has saying all those years with the Patriots and wanting the Patriots to be that dynasty. You can tell that the NFL is desperately wanting the Chiefs to be that next 20-year dynasty of like the Patriots in the early 2000s and 2010s with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, that kind of dynasty right there. They're just desperately wanting to have a new dynasty, and that is fine. But the Jets had this game won. Like, I felt the Jets, if they weren't down 17-0 early, if they weren't giving up some of those big chunk plays, the Jets could have won this game downright. I really do believe the Jets defense played a phenomenal game once they figured out how to slow down Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs with 17 down. Zach Wilson played the best game of the season, but also played the best game of his career. But the only time that was the most crucial was that fumble on that snap that happened at the wrong time. But Zach Wilson, other than that, this game was not on him. This game was not on the Chiefs, on the defense. This game was on the refs. The refs got in the way of this game that affected the Jets big time. Now, would it have made much of a difference if Aaron Rodgers was in this game? I felt if Aaron Rodgers was playing in this game, I felt like they would have won this game. But we don't really know that for sure because we've seen what Aaron Rodgers did in week 1 with those 4 plays that he played, those 4 snaps that he played, and he just didn't look very comfortable. So we don't really know if he would have won this game or not, because I feel the offensive line is also very bad. But they played pretty good in this game. Not great, not excellent, but they played good enough. And Zach Wilson played the best game that we've seen him play in his career. So hopefully this would be a confidence booster for the Jets going into next week when they go to play the Broncos. I think they have a legitimate shot to beat the Broncos. I think they should beat the Broncos. But I also wouldn't count on it either, because we don't know what this offense is going to look like going into next week. But they played really well against the Chiefs, though. And this is something that they should be proud of, especially when you're playing against a really good pass rush of the Chiefs. Granted, you were missing Nick Bolton, so that was kind of a big piece on your defense. But you still had Chris Jones that was kind of all over your face, and that was definitely a big factor right there. As long as you have Chris Jones in that defense, they're going to be tough to beat. But this was a game the Jets definitely should have won. Could have found a way to win. And then again, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift was in the house. Why? Okay, it's great that they have a relationship, but just why? Can somebody please tell me why this is, important right now? Then finally, we'll talk about the Seahawks. My Giants, man. My Giants. Worst team in the league. Or at least close to it, at least. They're bottom 3, bottom 4, bottom 5. Wherever they're ranked, I have no idea. But they're definitely not playing the way that they played last year. And, ironically enough, they have more talent on offense than they did last year. More weapons to work with, and they still can't win games. And they're 1-3. Daniel Jones, eat that extension that the Giants gave you, because you are playing like trash. And this is exactly what we thought Daniel Jones was. I'm not criticizing on Daniel Jones as a person. I love Daniel Jones as a person. I think he's a wonderful guy. But he is not a franchise quarterback. Giants fans and anybody else that watches football, that understands Danny Dimes, are you going to get it through your head that Daniel Jones just simply isn't that great? When are you guys going to get that through? I even thought, even when he came out of the draft, I wasn't even impressed when he came out of the draft either, because he made so many critical errors and so many big turnovers. He had fumbling issues. He had interception issues. The guy's a total mess. He got drafted to the Giants. Everybody thought they were going to change him and he was going to be the savior. Everybody last year. Oh, look at that. The Giants 9-7-1. Daniel Jones, 15 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions. Wow. The greatest quarterback we've ever seen. Greatest season he's ever had. Did anybody watch tape last year of Daniel Jones? Did anybody watch what he did last year? Because what he did, 31 other quarterbacks would have done the same exact thing that Daniel Jones did last year. Throw the ball in the flat, throw it for every 10 yards, and you keep the offense out for a long period of time. That's exactly what he was doing last year. Any quarterback that is playing in the NFL can definitely do that. Like, even if Tyrod Taylor was playing on the team, he still would have been able to do it. Let's talk about the playoff win. Their playoff win from last year was a huge fluke. Why? Because the Vikings defense was absolutely putrid at the end of the season. So why are we praising Daniel Jones for how he's conducted this team? Coaching has not been the greatest right now. I understand that. I don't simply trust the coaching. I don't simply trust any of the players right now, including Daniel Jones, because he hasn't given his best receiver yet, which is Darren Waller. They spent all that money to get him and trade him up to get him, and they have not been able to use him yet. This offensive line, the worst in the league, and without Andrew Thomas, it's even worse. Evan Neal is a bust from the draft as right tackle. He needs to get benched. Their only good players right now, Saquon Barkley, and he's not even playing right now. And then on defense, when you take a look at Kayvon Thibodeau, that's it. There's nothing else around the Giants that makes me say, wow, this team is very good. But same with the Seahawks, though, too. The Seahawks are good on offense, Their defense had some flashes last night, but they also were giving up some yardage to the Giants, where I felt like at times the Giants should have scored touchdowns on the defense. So the Seahawks defense played better than what they did the first 3 weeks, but it still doesn't mean that they're great. They played a very lowly offensive team, for one. They played Daniel Jones. They turned the ball over, which we all know he's turnover worthy. The guy doesn't have an offensive line. The weapons are there, but there's no consistency at quarterback play. So they took advantage of that. They were able to get pressure on that. And then when you take a look at the Seahawks on offense, Geno Smith, when he played well. But when Drew Lock came in, had some big time plays, especially that pass to Noah Fant. Drew Lock probably could be getting traded within the next couple of weeks to another team that will probably need him. Like Drew Lock's had some time to sit behind Geno Smith. Nobody was expecting that from last year. And I feel like he's got a lot of confidence having Pete Carroll as his coach. He probably could play well elsewhere. Probably could go save Atlanta's season. Probably could go down to the Jets and save their season too. Who knows? If anything were to happen to Zach Wilson. But we can't sit here and credit the Giants any longer for all the great things that they did last year. It's a new year. They're just simply not playing very good. And Daniel Jones, he wasn't worth the extension. He just was not worth the extension. We need to be able to get that through our heads, Giants fans, that he was not worth the extension. We shouldn't have paid him for that much. We paid him way too much money for him to be playing the way that he's playing right now. All right, guys. So that is it for my Week 4 recap of the NFL season. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the recap. What did you think about your favorite team? What did you guys think about how your team played or what they should have done? And let me know about your Week 5 picks, and let me know about what you guys are thinking about Week 5 and how your team is going to match up with any of the NFL teams that are playing, coming up in Week 5. So I'm going to be doing my Week 5 picks, not tomorrow because I'm going to be very busy on Wednesday, but on Thursday night, I'm going to do it right before Thursday Night Football. I'll try to get it out to you by 7, start it at least 7, so that way I can have my picks in for the Commanders-Bears game, which is a Thursday night game. But I'm going to be planning on doing my Week 5 picks on Thursday night at 7 p.m. So be there or be square. This is JP Football Fanatics saying thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you all next time. Peace.